In the vast emptiness of outer space, a signal burst forth, feeble, broken, all but consumed in the universe's ambient hiss. From more than 15 billion miles off, it took over 22 hours to arrive, finally, on Earth. A dying breath from the most distant representative of humanity. This was the final message of Voyager 1, not a great goodbye, not an exultant sign-off, but something else entirely. Something no one had expected. And for those who heard it, those who had stood lonely watch for generations, it verified what had been long assumed but never really accepted, that something in the depths of the universe had shifted. Voyager 1, which was launched in 1977, had already transcended all expectations. It was never intended to survive this long. Designed to study the gas giants Jupiter and Saturn, it worked wonderfully well, providing spectacular pictures and revolutionary information. But when its main mission was complete, it pushed on, outward, beyond Pluto's orbit, beyond the Kuiper Belt, into the void. Into interstellar space. Even after passing the heliopause in 2012, the edge of the Sun's domain, Voyager 1 persisted, firing off occasional, precious data from a domain no human probe had ever reached. As the years passed, its equipment slowly deteriorated. Radiation corrupted its sensors, power decreased as its plutonium-238 fuel stores aged, and cosmic dust progressively eroded its shielding. Nevertheless, Voyager persisted. Each year presented new hurdles in interpreting its increasingly unpredictable signals. Engineers had long explained odd readings as old hardware, bandwidth noise, or interstellar delay. The notion that something radically anomalous was occurring was entertained, but not for long. That all changed with what became known as the final burst. The final complete transmission Voyager made was nothing like anything that had occurred previously. It wasn't a standard check-in. It wasn't automated telemetry or pre-programmed diagnostics. It was different. An intentional-sounding burst of information, made up of precision-crafted pulses of electromagnetic activity, separated with mathematical precision. It wasn't noise. It wasn't a malfunction. The format didn't correspond to anything embedded in Voyager's 1970s communication protocols. What made the message so weird was that it originated from Voyager 1's own internal systems not designed to make it up. The probe had always existed by rigid sequences. Its commands were relayed from Earth and followed inflexibly. And yet this signal triggered a sequence not pre-coded. Engineers studied old handbooks, hunted down arcane protocols, but discovered nothing that could account for the behavior. Voyager had indeed decided to transmit a complicated signal on its own. A signal that appeared to encode not a malfunction, but a discovery. Weeks went by to reassemble the transmission. Scores of radio telescopes across the world collaborated, synchronizing their data to rebuild the fated signal. Scientists at NASA's Deep Space Network labored day and night, matching the waveforms against all their records. What they discovered was unexpected. The signal had an embedded pattern, a waveform displaying characteristics identical to quantum harmonic patterns. These were patterns observed exclusively in high-energy particle accelerators on Earth and controlled laboratory settings. But Voyager had found this in the wild. The deeper scientists ventured into the signal, the stranger it grew. The data encoded pointed to fluctuating magnetic fields, spontaneous bursts of radiation, and pressure waves with no apparent source. A few of the instruments on board the probe had automatically switched off months earlier in order to save power, yet the data showed readings from them within the last burst. In some way, Voyager had cycled them back online just long enough to take readings, then killed them again. That behavior wasn't in its capabilities. In addition, Voyager 1's internal log indicated small errors in its clock, milliseconds gained or lost unaccountably. Time, it appeared, had been made unstable. Its systems registered concurrent events, contradictory timestamps, and abrupt phase changes in memory access. The probe hadn't merely wandered into an unfamiliar area, it had entered an area where the fabric of space-time could possibly be different. This was no longer merely a tale of engineering grit. This was a cosmic enigma playing out in the here and now. Some in the scientific community were initially hesitant to accept these findings. They claimed that the data had been compromised, misread, or that the probe had finally run its course and failed. But the deeper the analysis went, the more a consensus emerged. This wasn't noise. This was something formal, predictable, purposeful. The character of that intent was undefined. There were no signals, no codes, no indication of life or intelligence. But Voyager's own performance appeared adaptive. It had changed power distributions from thermal sensors to cosmic ray detectors. It had increased signal strength at junctures of critical importance. It had even paced the transmission, waiting, apparently, until the Earth was most favorably aligned to receive it. These were not the actions of an inert machine. The notion started to take hold that Voyager had run across an interstellar phenomenon, maybe not an object, but a field or structure, something dynamic and alive. Not matter as we know it, but a region of space molded by forces we have not yet discovered. The patterns of the signal were too regular, its timing too specific. The interstellar medium, once conceived of as empty except for dust and occasional atoms, now seemed teeming with unseen richness. Plotting the source of the signal showed even more irregularities. Voyager had moved towards an area between stars, a pretty unremarkable channel of space. No giant stars, no nebulae, no gravitation waves detectable. And this empty patch in the sky had produced the most enigmatic signal in human history. The last message contained data in the form of coordinates, three-dimensional vectors along a line. Not a point, but a heading. As if mapping a route. Had Voyager discovered this phenomenon? Or had it been discovered? These kinds of questions bordered on speculation, but the consequences were inevitable. Even without mentioning aliens, the possibility that interstellar space could harbor natural, but structured, order was revolutionary. Some physicists theorized about the presence of cosmic scaffolding, electromagnetic lattice networks created during the inflationary epoch of the early universe. Others hypothesized about gravitational echo zones, where dead stars had left behind residual fields strong enough to warp reality itself. Still others dared to suggest consciousness, not in a biological sense, but in the form of emergent information systems, responsive fields shaped by quantum interaction over eons. The possibility that Voyager had triggered a kind of awareness, had interacted with something reactive, stirred debate and concern. Because the probe hadn't only detected anomalies. It had responded to them. Some of the data packets indicated Voyager cycling through transmission sequences. Not repetition sequences, but variations, iterations. As if testing, refining, soliciting response. As if it knew that it was under observation. This action threatened all we thought we knew about the capabilities of the probe. It lacked artificial intelligence. It was not capable of learning, adapting, or improvising. And still, in its final moment, it had done all of these. This created the most disturbing possibility that something had inserted itself into Voyager's systems. That the probe had temporarily become part of something greater, part of an information network not created by us. Engineers were quick to caution against jumping to conclusions. But others noted that even if the phenomenon was natural, it had still interacted with the probe in ways that could not be explained. Whether the effect was mechanical, gravitational, or informational, Voyager had altered in its presence. And then, silence. And then, with its last burst, Voyager 1 disappeared. The signal grew weaker, and then was gone. All efforts to recontact failed. Efforts to ping the vehicle with high-powered pulses came back with nothing. A few assumed it was merely a power loss. Others suspected the probe had been modified beyond our understanding, or pulled offline by forces beyond our knowledge. But what it did leave behind was enormous. Its last transmission is the topic of thousands of papers, data models, and simulations. Institutions everywhere, Caltech to CERN, NASA to ESA, are striving to decipher its message. Some postulate that Voyager's finding could compel revisions in basic physics. Others think it could usher in a new frontier in space travel. Already, plans are being laid for such missions in the future, probes not only to examine planets, but to hunt down such phenomena as Voyager discovered. They will need new equipment, new types of propulsion systems, and new conceptual frameworks for thinking about information, time, and consciousness out there. But they will take time. Years, and maybe decades. And Voyager's Hall of Mystery is far, far beyond our reach with the technology we have today. But for now, all we have is its message, a whisper from the outside, a piece of human curiosity encoded in a signal that could take hundreds of years to decipher fully. Voyager 1, so long assumed to be silent, had spoken. Not with words, but with form. Not with feeling, but with action. It circumvented our protocols and reminded us of our own boundaries. Its last message wasn't an ending. It was a break in the wall of the familiar. A crack through which something else, something enormous and invisible, might have looked briefly back. In that dying flash, we saw not only information, but a glimpse of our vulnerability and our promise. The universe responded, not in words, but in being. And that, in itself, makes everything different.